What's good, people? Jem here. Hope you're doing well. If you're new, welcome. Good to meet you. And if you come back, nice to see you again. So, how do you get out of the toy shop without spending all of your life savings? Because, you've got a child who's autistic, they're demand avoidant, and when you say no, it all kicks off. You end up picking them up physically. You can't always do that when they get bigger. And you're hearing about these gentle parenting techniques and you're thinking about how does it happen. And I understand this because many parents they feel torn in these situations. When it comes to a simple trip to the toy shop with Ruby, on one hand there's a genuine worry. If I give in, am I encouraging the wrong behavior? It can feel like I am rewarding a meltdown or teaching a child that pushing boundaries works. And let's be honest, there's also part of us that thinks, why should they get everything they want, right? After all, going to a toy shop is a privilege, not a right. Well, this is where I think traditional thinking often clashes with more modern, gentle, or what I like to call responsive parenting. And I've had to do a lot of work here because it is easy to misunderstand that these gentle parenting methods are simply giving the child their way. But that's not the goal at all. The real aim or the goal is actually to understand what is going on underneath the behavior. Because when we can understand some of the mechanics, we can begin to respond in a way that is both compassionate and boundaried as well. Like you can get the strong and the soft in there if we understand it. Now, of course, we can't and shouldn't walk out of the toy shop spending hundreds of pounds every time we visit for those of us who have financial limits. And the real question then becomes how do we set those boundaries without it turning into the emotional Olympics every time we go to the toy shop? Is it even possible to hold firm while having a meltdown? Well, who says there needs to be a meltdown? That's another thing. Now, the answer isn't simple, but in my experience with Ruby, I'm seeing more success than failure in the last year. And it starts with understanding what is happening for the child, especially if they have a neurodivergent profile with pathological demand avoidance or demand avoidance. And then we want to approach it with a mixture of empathy, clarity, and calm leadership. Because if we aren't calm, remember, a dysregulated adult can't help a dysregulated child. So here's how I would enter the situation and, well, I guess collaborate with Ruby so that I come out where she has met those needs of getting a toy, and so have I without burning a hole in my pocket. And also, I don't feel like a parent that's letting her down in either traumatizing her with my response or just being a yes man as a dad or a mum. So let's start with a perceived control um, and loss of autonomy, right? So children, we know this demand avoidance, they have an intense need to feel in control. And every situation, like choosing a toy, it comes with an internal pressure. And that internal pressure is to make decisions, to meet expectations, to do it right. And when a parent says no, it reinforces a loss of control, which can quickly escalate into anxiety. Their reaction, their shouting and their screaming is a stress response. And you also need to think about how a demand or demand masking can appear as desire. And in English, that really means a child wanting all the toys isn't greedy or just being impulsive. There may be a response to an internal demand. That's right, an internal demand, a demand that the child has put on themselves. So, what's going on in their head? I have to choose the right one. And what if I regret not getting that one? And what if this is the only chance I get? Now, every child might think this, but for a demand avoidant child, the intensity and that pressure, well, it's significant. So when a child says they want everything, it's probably reflecting panic rather than genuine desire. That's another way to think about this. And then when we say no, it feels to them like we are slamming, right, that door shut, and they're getting shut in there with the panic, and then we see the explosion. Now, saying no can feel like a threat. That's right, it can actually feel like a threat. Like I said, it's a stress response. And even a gentle no or the softest no, however you say it, it can feel like a demand or a constraint on their freedom. And it's not that they're being defiant in the usual sense. It's, again, I say this in other videos, it's a central nervous system thing for these kids. They are interpreting these limits as threats. So a simple no can and often does lead to fight, flight, freeze, and what people might call a meltdown. Now, keep this in mind as well. The toy shop is demand overload. Like, think about what's going on for, say, my daughter. You go into Smith's or wherever, and toy shops are a sensory and an emotional minefield. You've got so many choices. There's some real decision anxiety there. Even for a neurotypical kid, there's social expectations. There's pressures that they need to behave. The excitement plus the control loss that they can experience. Now we've got overload, right? They're dazzled by everything. They've got expectations. They've got internal demands. You say no. Oh, it's the perfect storm. So let's move into some action. What can we do? With Ruby, always preemptive planning, always. I get onto the website, we look at the toy. It might not be the exact one, but I'm setting expectations. I'm sowing that seed. Now, today we're just looking at Pikachu. That's what we got yesterday. And you can pick one toy for under £20 or something like this. So we let them get involved. They're collaborating with us before we get there. Also, letting Ruby pick the aisle and when to leave the aisle is another clever move because you're giving them some control back. And that's a nice itch for them to scratch rather than them trying to create control or exercise control through wanting to pick everything. And think about your language. I wonder which toy you'd love most today. Instead of, come on, pick one now. We've got to go. These aren't silver bullets, okay? These aren't silver bullets. Please, I don't want to bullshit you. But understanding what's going on through the lens of demand avoidance, we can shift from the interpretation from naughty or spoiled to overwhelmed and trying to cope, quite frankly. It's about helping the child or the adult navigate a world full of demands where their brain, okay, experiences those demands as dangerous or suffocating, even when they come wrapped in fun, like a toy shop, or kindness. So always let's get back to basics. When we're dealing with any scenario of our children, the more we know, the better that we understand what's happening with our children with demand avoidance. I think not only does our empathy go deeper, but the more desire we develop to have more patience, and we start to learn that traditional ways of parenting aren't going to be successful, and just ripping them off the floor or shouting at them and you saying that's a boundary or that's being mum and dad, well, you might be fanning the flames. And, you have to be able to then say, okay, well, if I'm not going to do that, what else can I do? And I hope I've given you some ideas to have a go at something. Please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.